So my name is Lisa Lowe. I am one of the members in the Coalition for Equity, Diversity, and Disability. And I'm sure that you know many of the other members in the group too. So you will get to know them a little bit more. So if we go to the next slide. So this is the agenda for this session. So we have about an hour. And I know we are kind of pushing a lot of stuff in the hour. So we will have actually maybe just short 3 poll questions to get to know a little bit who you are and a little bit your experience, you know, with interpreters and translators. And then we are so happy that we have 2 great presenters. One is a representative from the Framingham Public School, and then another one from Boston Public School. So they're going to share some of the maybe tips and strategies when, especially during this pandemic, if you somehow struggle, you know, handling the interpreter and translator situation. And then we're going to put into breakout rooms. And in the room, we have couple breakout room questions for the group to talk about, and I'll share a little bit later. And then at the end, Joni will also share some of the resources that may be helpful to you, of course, related to interpreters and translators. Okay.
Oops, sorry.
So I think by now, probably many of you kind of have so much experience with Zoom already. But in case you are one of the few people who don't, then we just want to share with you. At the bottom of your screen right now, nothing you can do with the PowerPoint because you're not the host. But toward the bottom, you will see that there's a navigation bar. The left side, you see the mute and unmute button. So we appreciate that during the presentation, then you keep yourself muted. And then if you want to show your video, then you can click on the second button. And so during the breakout group session, we actually ask that if you don't mind, share your videos, because this will be helpful, you know, if we see each other, you know, during the discussion. And then toward the other side, you will see the chat box. If you have any questions or something, maybe we talk too fast or something that you want to ask, you can definitely put your questions or comments in the chat box. And we are grateful that we have a staff to actually help us monitor the chat box. And then, of course, when we ask you to mute, we will appreciate if you have some reactions too, like you have a question, you know, thumbs up that's something that we said or something like that. So feel free to navigate that if you're not familiar with Zoom. All right. So just want to give you a quick overview about what this group is about. So the group is called Coalition for Equity, Diversity, and Disability. So this is a group that just actually formed recently. And you can see who the founding members are and then who are the supporting members. So I'm the representative at UMass Boston. I'm a faculty there. And in our group, we have educators, we have researchers, we have a lot of people actually have expertise in supporting, especially English language learners and dual language learners with disabilities. So Phyllis, if you go to the next. Yep. So this is the purpose and goal of our group. The main goal is actually to support students from the diverse background with disabilities and their families, but at the same time, of course, supporting educators so that they know how to support this particular group of population. So Sarah, would you mind to start our poll questions?
Oh, okay. Welcome everybody, and thank you again for joining us on this, like Lisa said, on this beautiful day, a little warm day. So we truly appreciate you spending some of your time with us. Right now, we just want to kind of understand who is with us today. So our first poll is going to be what is your role? And so we have a few roles here: ESL teacher, dual language educator, consultant, parent, other. And you might have multiple roles, so you're able to, I believe, check more than one. Mm-hmm. If not, or if your role is not up here or you have a specialized role, please feel free to share it in the chat. We would love to see your role represented there as well. So we'll give you a few seconds to go ahead and do that. And you can't see what I'm seeing right now, but I can kind of see everyone entering their responses right now. We have a little over half of our participants already entering their responses. So it looks like the majority of our participants are ESL teachers or dual language educators. Oh, but special education is coming up too, and so is speech and language pathology. We also have some school psychologists and counselors and some SEI or content area teachers. So we're looking here. I don't see any OTs or PTs yet.
All right, I closed the poll because it looked like there was nobody else entering new things.
Okay.
Oh, and actually, I had to scroll down the poll a little bit here, a little bit more, but it looks like we have the majority are school leaders and district leaders and administrators. So thank you.
Okay, you want me to do the next poll?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the next slide.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, I have to exit this one.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, sorry. Here we go.
So if we can move on to the next slide as well, I think.
Yes.
So the next slide right here is going to ask you in which setting do you provide your support or service. So this would correspond with your role. So we have SEI classroom, dual language, ESL classroom, transitional bilingual, special ed. And again, if you have more than one classroom that you provide your services, if you'd like to go ahead and enter that into the chat box as well, we can monitor that. Oh, so I see that we also have welcome family resource specialists and family resource specialists.
Okay.
So now it looks like we have most everyone has voted. And so it looks like the majority of services here are now provided in the ESL classroom with a quick, a follow-up second with SEI classrooms and dual language classrooms. And then we have other and also some special education. So if you have other, please feel free to enter that into the chat so we can see and we can discuss what that other might mean. So, oh, evaluation team chair. So ETL.
All right, I will stop and start the next poll. Okay. As soon as I figure it out. Here we go. Okay.
And the next poll, and I think we need the slide to go along with that, was guidance provided to you by your school district about working with interpreters and translation services to meet the needs of English learners, dual language learners, or students with disabilities during COVID? And so it looks like we have a few people already voting here. We also have a second question. If guidance was provided, how useful was it? And then again, please feel free to enter a little more detail in the chat if you feel comfortable. It looks like approximately half of you said that guidance was provided. About a quarter don't know. Same thing, about a quarter said no, useful. About a fifth of you think that it was very useful. About a quarter of you think it was somewhat useful. And there are even some not applicable. So I'm wondering what that might mean if you want to go ahead and enter something in the chat there.
Okay. Well, I'll share the poll.
Okay.
Once I figure out where my cursor is.
Okay, so it looks like approximately half of you felt that guidance was provided and that it was either very useful or somewhat useful or not applicable. So split down the middle with the not applicable right there.
So it's great to see that a number of you actually did get guidance, because the reason that prompted this particular open house is that in the last one that we organized, we actually noticed that a lot of comments from the participants that they have concerns or encounter some challenges with disabilities. So maybe it's time for our presenter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first presenter is going to be Bernardo from Framingham Public Schools. So Bernardo, we're going to monitor the PowerPoint from Phyllis' computer. So if you're ready, then you can start sharing your presentation.
Sure. So thank you everyone who joined us today in this sunny and hot day. And thank you to the Coalition for Equity and Diversity and Disability, and especially to Joni and Phyllis for inviting me to this open house. I'm very excited. I am the manager of translation and interpreting service for the Framingham district. I've been in this role for 3 years now. And I've seen how the office has expanded and now how it's evolving to accommodate to this new situation and to accommodate to families and student needs. So if we go to the next slide, I divided before the pandemic and after the pandemic or during the pandemic. So our mission has always been facilitating family-school partnership through language access by providing translation and interpreting services to these families whose primary language is not English. So as you can imagine, for translation, we provide press releases, handbook, reports. We also provide translation for students' materials or student resources or curriculum. And for interpretation, we do provide interpreting services for every kind of situation, parent-teacher conference, IP meetings, etc., etc. So how has this new situation, how has the pandemic impacted the translation needs in our district? So basically, the volume of work, the number of requests that we started to receive in my office has at least duplicated since the month of March. We have been translating everything related to COVID-19, all the resources, all the information. Since we started the remote learning in a district, we started translating everything related to remote learning, all the weekly calendars for the students. So what we decided is to encourage the usage of machine translation, such as Google Translate, for teachers to communicate on daily basis with parents, only for these kind of communications that are not important matters or sensitive matters. That provided us a good way to keep contact with students, between teachers and students. So I want to talk about now how we have adapted to this. So we can go to the next slide. We are now providing tones, numerals, and great resources, materials in different languages to our families. However, what I found is that these resources, translations, are only useful if our target audience has access to them. And this might be very obvious and very simple, but this has been a challenge because there's so many things to take into consideration, so many factors, such as, for example, technology literacy of our parents, or how are they going to access this information. So I really believe that knowing the community and adapting to the community characteristic is key. What happens if an English learner parent doesn't check their email on a regular basis? So whatever emails you send are not going to be very effective. Or what if they don't know how to connect to a Google Meet? Since we are aware of this situation, I repeat, knowing the community is essential. For example, we in Framingham know that the majority of our parents' interactions happen through mobile devices. Instead of a desktop, most of our parents uses either cell phones or tablets. And this number is even higher when we speak about EL families. So we also know that WhatsApp is the most effective way for Framingham EL parents to reach them. So from anything like messaging them, sharing links, sharing information or documents with them, having a conference meeting, a video call, etc. So we have adapted to that. So for example, we also know that media postings are way more effective than emails or text messages. So if we go to the next slide, there's so animation, Phyllis, in there. I wanted to talk first what I call passive family outreach and active. So passive, what I mean is how we prepare and make the information available for the families, whereas the active outreach would be how we can proactively make sure that all these resources reach its intended audience. So let's talk about passive family outreach. What we can do to make all of this information easily found for parents. Where to make this information available. We go to the next slide, please. So first, we want to make sure that everything that is shared with parents is translated into their languages. For our district, we have 3 main languages, which are English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So what we have created in our case is first a COVID-19 site, which requires constant maintenance, constant translation, constant updates, because information is changing and there's new information coming all the time. We also have a remote learning site. Basically, teachers for every grade and for every school, they craft weekly calendars with all the assignments and activities for the students to work at home. So they have to submit all these calendars by Friday at noon. So then we start translating these calendars, and we have to deliver them by Sunday because parents gain access to the calendars for the following week at Sunday afternoon. So that means that we are translating around 100 calendars in 48 hours. But I think it's been very, very much appreciated by families and even by students. We've also created a remote learning site, a food technology and academic resources site, for example. It's more newsletters. We use S'mores for newsletters and flyers or quick announcement from teachers or schools. S'more has a functionality that allows you to translate. It's basically a machine translation work that it does, but it's good enough for this kind of weekly newsletters from teachers to the parents, because we wouldn't be able to cope with that amount of work if we didn't use this kind of apps. We of course use social media. We're also uploading a lot of video tutorials and how related to technology, how to navigate a website, how to navigate the district remote learning homepage. So of course, all these videos come with subtitles. We create subtitles in Portuguese and in Spanish. So in the next slide, we can talk about how we can actively reach our families. So there are many active platforms or apps that can be used to promote what I've been talking about, the passive ones, amongst our parents. For example, share links to resources and YouTube tutorial. So we use Blackboard Connect to send emails, text messages, and robocalls, which is pretty effective. It has a translation functionality, which we don't use because most of these messages are messages coming from the district. So we want to make sure that they are humanly translated. Class Dojo, I'll talk about this a little bit later. We make phone calls, we send text messages, of course, video conference calls, WhatsApp text calls or videos, and so on. If we go to the next slide, I want to talk now about virtual interpretation services. So for virtual interpretation services, it is a fact for me that the need for interpretation services is the same or even more now than before COVID. So what are we doing now? Probably you're doing the same. 3-way calls with over-the-phone interpreting on Google Meet, Zoom, any other video chat. We also have interpreters making phone calls of their own. What we do is provide interpreters with a script that is made from the teacher or with a bunch of questions from the teacher. So the interpreter collects this information from the parents and responds back to the teacher. For example, we need to make a survey or schedule an IP meeting. So for these kind of situations, because we have such a huge necessity to reach out to families that is not always possible to arrange, or it would take much more time to arrange a 3-way conference call with a teacher rather than just having an interpreter calling to families. we can pass to the next slide. So what are the factors that I believe we have to consider? Can go back, yeah. So for example, when there are many non-English speaking parents attending virtual events, what we do is just regular conference interpreting model. The interpreter provides interpretation in the meeting for everyone. So the speaker talks, pauses, and then the interpreter interprets. In other cases, this is not always necessary. This is not necessary. Imagine the interpretation is only going to be for one parent. We know that only a couple of people that are attending the parent require the presence of an interpreter. So both the parents and the interpreter can join the Google Meet for the event, while they are also in contact through a different line, such as telephone or such as WhatsApp call. The interpreter then can interpret to the parents over the phone in real time. So this would replicate simultaneous model, and we can gain and save a lot of time, and we can be much more effective and have smoother meetings using this model. And for example, what we did for our bilingual parent advisory council last time was, instead of having 60 or 90 minutes working the 3 languages for all the parents, we divided in chunks of 30 minutes per language. So let's say 7 to 7:30 is the Spanish slot, then Portuguese, and then English. So every parent know when to jump in and connect to the conversation. Or what we did for Stapleton is what I already mentioned, like having everybody logged into Zoom, but at the same time connected through a telephone or WhatsApp line and be able to provide simultaneous interpreting. And of course, as we did at the beginning of this meeting, it is important to establish some meeting etiquette on how this is gonna work, especially the same as interpreters would do in real life, like please speak in short chunks, so allow me some time to interpret, or try not to interrupt, or all these things. So we can pass to the next slide.
Renato, you have about 3 minutes left.
Sure, thank you. I wanted to end the presentation with some positive outcome. I know it's difficult to think of positive outcomes after this situation we're living, but I still think that, for example, the lack of physical and day-to-day interaction has really increased awareness of importance of what language access mean, and especially it has increased the awareness among the leaders, which is very important. Also, the awareness of importance of bilingual staff has been great, because what I've realized is within schools, they have become more intentional about how they leverage, how they take advantage of language capacities among staff, which is something that maybe in the past was not done as much. We also come with more resources and materials translated in different languages. And I've also realized how these virtual interpretations have resulted to be more efficient. And what I mean by that is, like, since they are virtual, I've noticed that there's less bias. Nobody is in front of each other. Nobody's seeing each other. There's more parent-teacher direct communication, which is great, and is I believe is one of the biggest challenges in school interpreting. And this is related also with the boundaries, professional boundaries of the interpreter. The interpreter just interprets during virtual meetings, whereas in face-to-face meetings, I've seen the interpreters going beyond their actual role of interpretation. So they don't respect in face-to-face meeting this role, and they become more like advocates. So they take part in the conversation. This is something we don't want. I also see there's more transparency. I see that what I've observed some interpretation, I've seen how everything that is said during these virtual meetings is actually interpreted, is actually translated. And I haven't seen that during my observances in the schools during face-to-face interpretation. Many things left untranslated and interpreted. And this is something I always encourage the interpreters to do. So I would say there are some positive outcomes out of this situation. And for my final slides, have some links and some resources for teachers and staff. For example, I've put here, probably you know most of them, Lingly or DeepL. So they kind of work like a translation memory. The good thing about these two resources is that they provide human translated chunks or phrases or sentences. So because they have been previously paired and aligned from text from the internet in different languages, whereas on the other hand, Google Translate is immediate. You can translate whatever you want, but of course, Google Translate or Reverso, they don't take context into account, so they don't really understand. There's no a person behind that, so there's no understanding of the syntax, semantics, the intention of the text, or no context at all. Our teachers also use Class Dojo, and the functionality for translating Class Dojo is great. What else? What I've talked about S'more. We've talked about Blackboard Connect. And finally, in the last slide, I have some more resources of materials.
Yep, so we have included those in our overall resource, which we will be sharing with the rest of the participants.
Okay. From DESI and from the Metropolitan Center. So this is pretty much it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fernando. Silent clap. So now we're going to move on to the second presenter. Yvonne, Ellen, are you ready?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
All right. Okay, so let's start.
Please go to the first slide. So thank you for inviting us. Just like Bernardo, we also have it divided into 3 phases, and Alan is going to take you through the phase 1.
First and foremost, I'd like to say I appreciate the invite. It's a pleasure to be involved in a great conversation around supporting, our families and in particular our students with disabilities. Greatly appreciated. This slide here, essentially speaks to, phase 1 of the district in terms of getting ready to manage and deal with COVID-19. I'm going to jump to number 4 because I think it speaks to, the full spectrum of what's on the slide. And it's essentially a collaborative effort. There has been a tremendous amount of collaboration, rightly so, to sort of mitigate some of the shortfalls with respect to COVID. And there have been a tremendous amount of resources provided to sort of support us through this process. We got technology supports. There are teacher supports, which Dr. Barrero will get into. There are multilingual tutorials, but it has been a massive effort on the part of the district to collaborate to get ready, to sort of continue supporting families during this time.
Thanks, Alan. I think it's, when you talk about massive, we really want to emphasize we've been giving out Chromebooks to families to be able to do this work. And I think we were up to 27,000 Chromebooks. We even made house calls to deliver them. So I want to focus on step number 5. There are some tools there for teachers. Later on, when you have a chance and you want to play with the links, everything is linked in here where you can look at the materials. Nearpod is a computer-based platform where teachers can design or share or pick different lessons for ELS with disabilities. This we started in the district a few years ago, and you can find it in different languages. You can find it at different levels. So the teacher can be giving one science lesson, but in 4 different levels because her kids are at a variety of levels. So it's very UDL adapted. It's a great tool. It does cost some money, but it really gives you the access to not just the within the district lessons, but you can find lessons across the whole United States. Goldbook is also a special education tool that is also geared for ELS with disabilities, where you can write your goals for your IEP based on the student's level. So you can open Goldbook and look at, I want to write a goal for reading comprehension. It will give you not just the goal, but it'll also give you the materials. Goldbook does not have materials in other languages, but at least in Boston, whenever we need to, we send it to Alan and he helps us to translate that. And then the last link there, masterclass, the Office of English Learners has put together a 6-week program for teachers to learn how to develop using virtual resources, very tailored slides and materials for their students. So that's also, I mean, you can't participate in that, but that's just another sample of what we could do at different district levels. Next slide, please. So here, the phase 2, once we got the Chromebooks out, then we had to really talk about the instruction. How do you provide instruction to all of these kids virtually? And each of these links, if you can open the sample schedule, Phyllis, that would be good. Here's an example of how to, sorry about that. I will change that as well. How about online platforms? Let's try that one. Okay. I will give you all access. I will go back to that. But you could do SEL bilingual sites. We've created with the psychologists, we've created all of these websites. We've created office hours. We've created, links to, for example, that strategy, that Keep Calm strategy in Spanish and other languages. So we have a variety of tools for teachers to really reach out to other specialists. So we've got PTs, OTs, speech and language, psychologists, everybody creating lessons and throwing them into our SEL bilingual sites, where a teacher can just say, I need, some strategies around keeping calm. You can link in there. It's already done for you, and it's already in a variety of languages. Next slide. Alan?
Again, this just speaks to some of the parent supports. There has been a tremendous amount of, again, collaboration in the district. There is a hotline currently, and I believe there are 10 languages, that are available there to support, family calls with respect to housing, food and, COVID-related concerns. So that hotline has been, very successful. Our department in particular supports that, and a multitude of BPS departments are participating there. Special ed meetings have continued, which is great. We were able to transition from in-person interpretations to all virtual. So those special ed meetings, along with additional and other meetings, have continued. So that was great. Multilingual trainings, there's technology trainings. We've just rolled out, a vast amount of technology training specific to parents, as well as school leaders and teachers. Those videos are in the 9 major languages of the district, and they range from, accessing your Chromebook as a parent, accessing Zoom. So those have been very beneficial. And then there's, constant communication, that, is taking place as well. Again, it's not enough, obviously, because this, again, is a massive endeavor. But I think the district is doing, a good job in terms of trying to move the needle.
We are just in, tomorrow we'll be finishing up with multilingual training for parents on how to handle else with disabilities, among other things. And I would be more than happy to share that. We are recording them, but since we're still not finished, and those will also be in 9 major languages, but I will share them with the committee. Next slide.
So Yvonne and Alan, you have 5 more minutes.
Okay, the third phase is the extended school year. What do we do with the summer programming? We will continue everything we've been doing so far. That's the quick version. Next slide. Here is again just resources. These are all links that you can go into and look at the materials we have in all of our major languages. Next slide. Alan?
Again, these are more resources. This is the We Dream Together website. There you will find resources for educators, immigrant family resources, immigrant student resources. There are learning opportunities. And then there are resources obviously specific for our EL students and our students with disabilities. So this is a sort of great website. And again, it's language specific. So there are resources there that cater to families with limited English proficiency.
Next, yes, thank you. And these are some of our challenges, right? We have a huge district. We have 57,000 students, of which about 73% speak another language. So it's not just the ELs with disabilities, but we have a lot of ELs that we also have to attend to. And this continues to be some of our challenges. We're really working to figure out what's the best way to move forward. We are constantly working collaboratively. So anything that goes out for a monolingual parent goes out in the parent's language, and with supports around the special ed needs. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to assess students when we're not doing virtual we can't do virtual assessments. So that's a conversation, and we'd welcome any ideas if you have any, because we're kind of stuck right now. Next slide. And one more. Yes, so here's our information. There's another slide at the end with more resources. I'd be more than happy to stay after this meeting if anybody wants me to help them run through the Nearpod or the Goldbook pages. I'd be more than happy to do that, or send me an email and we can reach out later and set up a time so we could work through those. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne and Alan. And so Bernardo, Alan, and Yvonne will stay even during our breakout discussion session. So they will circulate, from one room to another. And so if you have any questions related to their presentation, you can definitely ask them that. So Sarah, would you mind sharing the breakout room discussion?
Sure. So our breakout room discussion questions. What resonates with you from the presentations by Bernardo, Yvonne, and Alan? What are the ideas that presenters mentioned that you can utilize? What continues to be a challenge, and what questions do you still have? So we understand that everyone has a localized context, but looking at our presenters and seeing what they've done and where they are in their progression, it allows us to kind of think about where we are. And so we are going to now move into breakout rooms where we can discuss this with one another.
Everybody, welcome. Welcome back from your breakout rooms. And I just wanted to make sure that you know that you can continue to add on to the Padlet. So those particular Padlets are up. Please feel free, if you didn't have enough time, to enter your key takeaways, your challenges, your questions, promising practices. You can go and add on to them. And maybe you're having conversations with colleagues over the week and something comes up. Please know that those will be on the MABE site for you to then go back to and add information. And thank you for what you've already put in so far. So now we're going to talk about some next steps in the time that remains. So again, this one gives you some links for partnerships with CEDD. You can go to the Bilingual Special Education CEDD blog that Sarah Nino and Claudia Rinaldi are currently hosting. There's some phenomenal resources that are there, so please check it out. Our CEDD Facebook is currently under construction, but when we have it up and active, then we will send you an email, and that's a way that you can access information. And please don't forget about the MassAll Facebook website or Facebook, as well as MABE's. This session has been recorded and will eventually be posted both on MABE, MassAll, and eventually CEDD. You can also look at some Twitter and the CED page on website. Phyllis, if we could go to the next slide. There's also a phenomenal webinar that's going to be happening with one of our members who wasn't in this meeting today, but Dr. Robai Warunga from UMass Lowell. And here is a registration site. And this is particularly looking at bilingualism and disability. I know Alba Ortiz will be one of the researchers that will be presenting. I know I'm going to be jumping on, and it starts at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Robai just joined us, by the way.
Oh, sorry, Robai. I didn't see that you were on. Good timing. If we could go to the next slide, please. And this is what Dr. Lowe spoke about earlier on in the meeting, and thank you, Phyllis, for opening up. There's a variety of resources that are available to you, and we've organized it, what is free, what is for cost, what are materials in multiple languages, what are DESI created materials. And this will be available for you. We'll be adding on some additional ones. So all of the documents and resources that we're providing as a coalition are co-generative and co-created. So if you have ideas and resources that you would like to add, please send us an email or let us know, and we will also include them in the resources. So they'll be constantly growing. Phyllis, if we could just stay at the DESI materials, I just want to make sure, because when I'm working with districts, I'm often finding that they're not aware that there are translated IEP forms and notices, as well as parents' procedural safeguards in typically the 5 most common languages other than English spoken in Massachusetts, but there might be some languages that you're looking at: Arabic, Vietnamese, Khmer, Spanish, Portuguese. So if you're not familiar with that website, please go and find those resources as well. And thank you. Looking at, thank you, as we said. Again, we're going to encourage you to please continue to add your thoughts and your wonderings onto the Padlets. We will be setting up some future open house meetings. Our next open house meeting is scheduled for, I believe it's Thursday, June 11th from 2 to 3 p.m. It will be focused on family advocacy. Here is the registration link for you. Our initial open house, there was a lot of questions. How do we advocate? How do we reach out to parents and families in terms of engagement? So I think this will be another really very interesting and informative and resourceful event. So please check out the resources we have provided. And I think that, Phyllis, might be our last slide, right?
It is our last slide. I don't know if people want to take a moment. Anybody want to take a moment to give us some feedback? Let us know. I know we messed up a little bit with the breakout rooms. I was listening to Sarah's words, not paying attention to the presentation that would give explanations. But other than that, any of my co-hosts want to say anything? Okay. Well, we thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Yep. Thank you for joining us. It was a little bit rushed. I think we're going to need to take a little extra time next time.
And remember, your feedback is what provides the content of these get-togethers that we have. So everything is completely generated from the Padlets and from your comments and any kind of information. This organization is because of you. It is for you, and it's with you. So please let us know how we can support you.
And also feel free to contact us if you have any questions or if you encounter any challenges too, because so we'll know how we can better support you, either through another open house, or maybe simple as we can just email you the resources that you need. So, but we do need to know how we can help you.
And there was a quick question in the chat. How can people find the Padlets and access those after the meeting?
Okay. So I will make sure to send out a follow-up email to everybody who registered with the Padlet information and all our contact information, as well as the resource on Google Doc.
And all of our contact information is on there as well.
Right. And just one other quick thing we didn't mention, and I'll put it as a resource too. LaSalle University has a bilingual special education certificate. There's a current course that's going on now, and then Sarah and Claudia Rinaldi will be teaching another course probably the beginning of July, I'm thinking, Sarah. So we'll put that information up, and that's specific to assessments, right? Evaluations and assessments. Right. Which will be interesting during remote time. So
right, exactly. We'll be talking more about what assessment is going to look like for eligibility and also too for progress monitoring.
There you go. So thank you all.
Have a wonderful afternoon.